I think that by now we all know that seed oils are a massive problem, but Suzanne Alexander and Dr. Chris Kenobi take it to a whole nother level in their work and show exactly what that's doing and those correlations. I think there's a lot more to the story, but they do an incredible job laying that out, and I'm happy to visit with Suzanne and understand more, especially on their recent trip to discover more of an ancestral way of life. Suzanne, so excited to be visiting with you and diving into your work. I think that it is massively important, you and Dr. Kenobi, to just kind of get in. How did you get involved in writing now, I mean, some might call this a book, but I mean, that's as big as the textbooks that I have seen.
It's a thick, it is a thick book. It is.
It is. How did you get into the point of studying ancestral health and diets and seed oils to the point that y'all wrote a book?
Well, both Chris and I, it was really a God thing. God intervened. But I've been doing this since I was 5. I've been studying ancestral diets since I was 5. And so it's been a long journey, but God had a plan for me, and I've been on this trajectory since I was 5. And again, so it starts back to my childhood when my grandmother was living with 3 tribes in Africa. And so when she would come home to visit, I would sit at her feet and she would just tell the most beautiful, remarkable stories of these beautiful people. But I was born with a lot of diseases, and I didn't know that I was born with these, but I was sick all the time and we couldn't understand why. But my father also had a lot of similar symptoms. And so real quickly, I'll just say, eventually when I turned 57, we found out I had celiac disease. Also, I have the MTHFR gene mutation, which I didn't know for quite a while. And so that is also causing problems, but there's just a lot of autoimmune problems. But so anyway, as a child, I would ask my grandmother, are those children sick? And she would say, no, they're all healthy. And I would say, well, what are they eating? And she would talk about, they're eating brains and they're eating things that they would catch, and the tubers that they would find in the animals. But it was all from earth, from nature, and everything that we were consuming was processed. And my father was also a wildlife rehabilitator, and so we raised wild animals, and they were my joy. They were like my siblings. I had five brothers and sisters, but these were also my siblings as well. And they looked at me as if I was one of the litter, because when we would get many of them, it was before they opened their eyes. And so the first beings that they would see would be my father, of course, which they thought was their mother. And then we would be like the rest of their litter. And I kind of marched to a different drummer, and I still do. And so they were everything to me, and especially the raccoons. I just loved the raccoons. And they taught me to climb trees. They taught me we had, at our home, we had a brook down below. And at our camp, we had another brook. And whenever they would go down, I would watch them catch things. And they were just so remarkable how they would just, get a crayfish or a frog, whatever it was, and how they would just eat into them. And I would marvel at this, but then they could eat plants as well. But they were eating with their species-specific diet. And finally, when I turned 10, that was my first hypothesis, where I said to my father, I said, Dad, our animals are all eating from the earth. And Grandma talks about the tribes, and they're all eating from the earth, and they're all healthy, but we're not, and we don't eat from the earth. And I said, do you think what we're eating is making us sick? And he said, I never thought about it, because all my doctors would always tell me, this is just who you are. You're going to suffer. You're just going to be this way. Just take this or take that. And I kept saying, but God doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't make mistakes. We're designed perfectly, and animals aren't sick in the wild. And the tribes aren't sick, but we are. And so I kept thinking about this and thinking about it. Finally, when I graduated from high school, I went off to become an opera singer at the time. And so I'm at this big university. I have this huge library at my disposal. And so that's when I really started delving in. And so I started taking food out. And I became a vegan for a really long, long, long time. And it did have a powerful impact on me for many, many years. I will say for a few decades. But B12 can live for quite a long time. We build it with storage, and it can stay in our body for quite a while before we deplete it. And so I think that I had that going for me. But I also lived very ancestrally anyway. We don't have a TV. We don't have a microwave. I live very simple, very basic life. And I did the same thing with my daughters when they were born. And so eventually, by the time I hit 50, my health started failing. I lost all the feeling in my feet. And I asked my doctor about this, and she's like, "But you're getting older, Suze. This is what happens." And I said, "No, God doesn't make mistakes." And I said, "I need you to run blood work on me." And she said, "Well, what?" So I gave her the whole list. And one of them was copper. And she goes, "Suze, no one is deficient in copper." And here I was taking all my vegan supplements, which I don't even believe in it, because I know it's not ancestral. It's not, God doesn't, if we're eating naturally and we're eating what God designed, we shouldn't have to be taking supplements if we're eating optimally. And so the test came back and I had bottomed out. There was hardly no copper. And she's like, "Oh my gosh." So all the doctors were all like, "Oh my gosh, we don't know what to do. What do you do with someone who has no," and they said, "You need to be in the hospital. We need to put you on IV." I said, "Oh no, I'm not going near a hospital. No." And so I started researching it. And I thought, oh my golly, if I'm low in copper, then I said, probably most vegans are. And here I was taking a supplement. We had copper in it, but I don't believe we can. Most of the supplements we cannot absorb naturally. Our body doesn't recognize it. It's really just expensive urine. We're just urinating it out, And so that was in the back of my mind. But then I had my first colonoscopy. And that's, of course, I'm questioning the vegan diet at this point. And I'm working on my doctorate in health and nutrition at the same time. I'm thinking, this is going against, they're all saying this is the perfect diet. Being a vegan is a perfect diet. So I had my first colonoscopy thinking it's going to be pristine. And the colonoscopy, I got done, and the gastroenterologist comes in. And I'm like, "How was it?" And he's like, "Well, I can't tell you." And I said, "What do you mean you can't tell me?" Because your entire colon is embedded with nuts and seeds. And he said, "Whoever told you that humans should be eating nuts and seeds?" And I said, "What?" I said, "They're a superfood. How can this be?" He says, No. He says, "This is what happens. They get embedded. You can't digest them. They get stuck in all the grooves and all the, stop eating nuts and seeds." So again, another big red flag. Okay, I can't feel my feet. My gastroenterologist is saying nuts and seeds we shouldn't be eating them. And so anyway, so fast forward, it hit me. I need to change. And then my blood work kept getting worse and worse. And I ended up bottoming out on my white blood cells, my red blood cells, and my platelets. And so I went to my doctors all said, you're dying. You're dying. You have to go see a hematology oncologist. You've got cancer. So I went to them, and I had this whole group. They're baffled. They're running all these tests on me, and everything's coming back. I'm dying. And I'm like, and they said, "We think you have either a rare bone marrow cancer." And at the time, I had put in breast implants. Girls, don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not beautiful because of the size of your chest and your breasts, because it's our size of our heart that matters. Don't do this to please someone. So I'm like, wait, there could be a breast cancer from implants? And they said, yeah. So it's either one or the other. And they said, "We think it's the bone marrow though, because the white blood cells there's nothing." And they said, "But it's an extremely painful test to go through." And they said, "But we know you. If it comes back that you have cancer, are you going to be treated for it?" I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I will heal myself naturally." And they said, "So then why put you through it? Why don't we just agree to say that you have bone marrow cancer?" And I said, "Well, how long would I have to live if I don't do anything?" He said, "About 15 years. I said, "Okay, so you guys can believe that, but I don't." So I said, "See you later." So I did. I left, and I went and had the implants taken out. It is horrific. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So then I met Sally Norton. And she is all about oxalates, because in all my research, I'm a researcher. And this is what I do. And she worked with me for 8 months to slowly, because I had been vegan for 25, 30 years, to slowly get the oxalates out of my body and everywhere. And I started to think, is it possible that the oxalates had replaced my bone marrow? And she said, it's a very good possibility, because there's a lot of research out there saying that oxalates can actually start to replace things, and bone marrow is one of them. And so it took us 8 months. And in the meantime, I was getting styes. I mean, the oxalates were coming out of my eyes. They were coming bone spurs. It was just a horrible journey. But I had her holding my hand. And then I met Paul Saladino, and I became one of his clients as well. And this is when he was full carnivore. So I did carnivore for a year, going from full vegan to carnivore. And it was powerful. It was powerful. The first few months, it was like, oh, of course, the first piece of meat was unbelievable. You know, we hadn't had it in so long. And I wasn't vegan because of the animal being the piece of, because I watched my animals taking life and eating animals. And I thought, this is natural. We're supposed to. But it was just because I was taking things out. And every time I took something out, I felt better. Okay. And so it took away my migraines I had as a child. I had a hiatal hernia. The hiatal hernia healed. So many things were just healing. I was just getting so much better, but not all. But anyway, so Paul and I worked together for quite about a year, and my feet and my calves and I just had the worst cramping, and I was still working with Sally and doing all the supplements, but I just felt getting worse. And my blood work was coming back horrible. The only good thing is that I was actually starting to produce white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. And that's when I knew I'm good. I don't have cancer. And so they're great. My white blood cells are still low, but they're better than they were. And that to me is because the liver. And also, if you're MTHFR and if you're low in copper and all those things, liver is king. Liver's got huge riboflavin. It's just got huge copper. It's wonderful. And I eat raw liver a lot. Not every day, but I do about 1/2 of an ounce every other day. And that's become my optimum. But anyway, so carnivore was fabulous. It's a wonderful diet, or a way to purge the system of toxins and all the things that we've had over our life. And then it allows us to heal, and then to find what's right for our own individual DNA. And I really am concerned that the more I watch everyone on all the social media, is that I feel that we're making people become not anorexic, but orthorexics. And I don't know if you've ever heard that word. It's called orthorexia. And we're creating a society now, because social media is so accessible and it's just everywhere, where people are becoming afraid of everything, even healthy food, because we don't know what's healthy anymore, because we're being told so many all these different directions, oh no, don't eat this, or no, don't eat that. And that's why I'm on this mission to live with all the different tribes to find out the truth. Because I don't know if even research, when we were just on our recent Pacific Islands expedition, and in here, we've been researching forever. I've been researching for decades, and Chris has been researching for almost 20 years. And a lot of the things that even research said wasn't true. We had to see it for ourselves. And so that's what we ended up doing. We went to the Pacific Islands, and we were learning amazing things. And were times when I start really downloading a lot of the videos, I'm so overwhelmed, because I can't believe I'm seeing. I can't believe I'm hearing, and what I'm witnessing, and the knowledge that they have from their ancestors that's passed down. They have never opened a book. They just intuitively knew. They learned through experimentation and all of these things to become some of the most healthy people in the world. And these people are not carnivore. I will be going to live with some carnivores coming up, but right now these people were not carnivores. So I'm going to do a variety of living. So I'm going to be living with a Maasai coming up in about a couple of weeks. So I'll understand what they do. Do they really do the milk, blood, and meat, or are they? I'm really questioning that, because my research is telling me no. But we will see. We will see. And I'll be living with the Hadza and the Togas, and hopefully the Chagas. So there's a whole variety of tribes I would like to be living to live with, and I'll be solo on this, and so I'll be reporting what I'm finding out there. But anyway, I'll stop in case you want to chime in there, Logan. I'm rambling.
That is so cool. So you're getting to live what your grandma lived and get the
Yes.
experience. That's going to be so special
Yeah.
to just to have that parallel experience. You have said so much that kind of connects things and topics that we've dove into. So I have actually 3 snips of MTHFR. So I know that my son has it, partial. Um, that's a topic we've dove into quite a bit. The copper with Morley Robbins is a
Oh,
previous guest, and Morley's work is really eye
me
opening.
too.
So like uh, it's there's so many different directions I kind of want to go, Suzanne,
Mm.
but let's start with the ancestral aspects real quick because Dr. Bill Schindler, he was just recently on, and
Love
he
Bill.
said the same thing you did with, hey, a lot of the things we've been told are not actually what's going on. So like the big blue zone debate, right, of Sardinia and over
Yes.
over in Greece and Italy, things that are not what it's we have been told, right? They are very heavy meat based or dairy, things that they've done there that is not what we have been told is the accurate thing. So that ancestral way, how do you think that we can gauge what they're doing now versus what we've done ancestrally, and how are you going to be able to tie that together?
Okay, so what we found when we went to the Pacific Islands, and I was already kind of aware of this. I've been researching it for so long, and my biggest fears came to fruition. It was exactly what I saw. So our our processed food is infiltrating, without a doubt. It's infiltrating, and it's causing havoc, just like it's caused with us. Now we're seeing it in these people who were once so pristine in how they lived and how they ate. Um, and it's so sad. So we were trying to educate them while we were there, and they were so appreciative. They're like, "What? Really? So I'll start with the first tribe that we spent a lot of time with was the Dani tribe, and they were in West Papua, Indonesia, and they're very similar to what we studied in Papua New Guinea, and the Tukasintas, and they who live mostly on sweet potatoes. And I thought, do they really? And they really do. They really do. Sweet potatoes, everything to them. And pig is they revere the pig. And as a matter of fact, we were in Wamina, and Wamb for Wamina is what the word for pig. And so they actually named their location after a pig. And so they have pigs for their pets. They love the pig, but they won't kill the pig. They'll kill someone else's pig. So they kind of swap them back and forth as long as it's not their own. It's like a family member. But so they'll eat pork, like maybe once a month. And so they do have meat in their diet, but not a lot. But it's just enough to keep them healthy. However, what I noticed is their dentition. Oh, it was not good. But we knew that Weston Price had already told us that this was
Right.
probably what we were going to find. But it was worse than I thought. I mean, it was just the women hardly any teeth. They're aging. The way that they're aging is not graceful compared to another tribe, which I'll talk about in a minute, that we spent time with, which really gave us a lot of aha moments when we saw that one tribe, because we compared their diets and their lifestyles, totally different. They smoked it was constant. And here I was thinking, well, maybe they're rolling their own, you know what I mean? And they used to, because some of the older people in the tribe were showing us that they grow tobacco and they would roll that. So of course there'd be less toxins. But now there's these because they don't drive, they walk everywhere, and they don't wear shoes, which I'm a big proponent of. I'm so big into grounding. So I was like, oh, I'm all into this. However, so they can't really, they just walk everywhere. But these little shacks, I was calling them shacks because that's what they look like, are like every couple of miles. And they have like this screen that's in front of the person who's selling. Okay, so you can't go in, you can't even look around the store. You just go up and you tell them what you want. And then they'll slide it underneath this little thing. They slide it underneath it, and then you can get your goods. And most of the time they're getting their cigarettes from there. And it's the cigarettes that we basically sell with all the toxic chemicals in them. And they sell seed oils, and they sell candy. They sell all these things, but they do sell things that they do need, because a lot of them are starting to realize that they can have feminine hygiene products where they actually can have pads and things when it's their time of the month and so forth. So that's beautiful. But the fact that they're selling them all these toxic, processed foods and cigarettes and things, but they were smoking constantly. And what I found was interesting, Logan, was I asked them to show me where they're getting their salt from, because I've always wondered. And I mean, I know that I'm part Native American, and I know that Native Americans would find salt springs and they would just evaporate the salt, by boiling. But they don't, because they live way up high in the mountains. And this salt spring is way up high in the mountain. So we had to climb this mountain, and we got to the very top, and they had this banana stalk that she carried with her, the female Dani person that was going to show us how to do this. And she takes a stick and she goes over and she's peeling all of the fibers off the outside of each of the layers. And then she goes into the salt springs and she's twisting and turning and literally like pickling the skin of this banana stalk. And she does it for about a half an hour. So I hop in and I'm helping her, and we're doing all this. And we wad it all up into a ball, and then we take it back. And so what they're going to do is they dry it, because she had me taste it. And it's not extremely salty, but there is salt in it. It was not bad. And so they dry it. And then what they do is they'll break it off, and they can add it to their food, or they can eat it if they feel they need it. But they don't use hardly any spices. The entire, every place we went for the 7 islands we were on, they did not use hardly any spices, which I thought was really nifty, because I don't really use spices either. And salt was not that. I mean, they would just have a little bit of the salt. And in the other tribes that didn't have a salt spring, they would just use the salt water from the ocean, and they would cook with that. So it wasn't a big thing. So anyone who's really preaching that, we need salt, a lot of salt, all this salt. For me, salt makes my skin dry out. I get puffy eyes, my fingers, my feet swell up. And I've always wondered what's the big thing with the salt. So for my body, my DNA, I'm much better off with hardly any salt in my diet. And I don't know why, but that's just me. So everyone's got to find what's right for them. Don't listen to, just because I'm saying something is right for me, it's not going to be right. It may not be right for you. So I thought it was interesting there that in their skin, and was just very, but is it from the smoking? Is it from, the lack of meat, that their skin is paper thin looking and is sagging compared to the other tribe I'll talk about soon. But anyway, so Logan, it was interesting when they were climbing the mountain, and they're smoking while they're climbing. There's no wheezing, there's no coughing, there's no sound of emphysema. It's remarkable. And we did talk about this in the book. We talked about, are they able to be, and their home, their little huts that they live in, there's just constant fire going, and there's not a hole for the smoke to go out. It just fills up with smoke. Plus they're smoking at the same time. So I'm sitting in this hut with them, and I'm coughing, I can't breathe. And they're not coughing at all. I'm just like, I'm just like, oh my golly. It took me 2 days to get over. I thought, here I'm an opera singer. I'm thinking, it's burning up my vocal cords, my lungs. For 2 days, I was coughing and I couldn't breathe very well, but they're absolutely, nothing phases them. So it's remarkable. Again, that's a piece of the puzzle I still have to be working on. And is it because of their lifestyle? Is it because of what they're eating? They're consuming, the sweet potato is so loaded with minerals, and they've got bananas. I mean, they've got pristine fruit everywhere you go. It's free food everywhere you go. If you're hungry, you can just pick anywhere. And there's no pesticides, there's no chemicals, no fertilizers. Everything is as nature designed it to be. It's truly remarkable. There's not the Wi-Fi, there's not the EMFs everywhere. I'm not a good sleeper. And I actually was sleeping for 5 hours in a row and dreaming for the first time in 30 years. And so I'm trying to think, is it because I was eating this unbelievably nutrient-dense food that we don't have here? Or is it because the EMFs weren't bothering me, because I'm extremely hypersensitive to electromagnetic fields? Or was it both of them? I don't know, but it was truly remarkable. And we were out in the sun all the time. I wasn't working inside, and I try a lot to be outside because I'm a nature girl. But so there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. But anyway, so now I'll go to when we went to Vanuatu. Vanuatu is another island, and for all the islands, this was the pristine health where we saw. So we spent time with a family tribe, and it was like a clan, about 27 people, and they're all related, so they just live together. They were remarkable, absolutely remarkable. Just beautiful, beautiful skin. The older people were they weren't frail and just so tiny. They were just fit as can be. And their teeth were beautiful, and they weren't smoking, but they ate a lot of fish. A lot of fish and chicken. They said, but fish was probably their prized piece because they lived on the water. The Dani don't live, they live high in the mountains, so there's no water there to fish. They don't have that. So they don't have the access to it. So therefore, I just thought, okay, it's important. We have to have a certain amount of animal products to be, I think, at our optimum. And I found that with my own body, going from veganism, where my skin was becoming very paper thin as I was aging. And then I added in carnivore for a year, and then I backed off. And I'm still mostly meat. Most of my calories are from meat and organs and things like that. But I have a little bit of what I think for my body work the best are giving me my minerals that I need. So I feel like I've tweaked it and found my optimum diet for me. And I needed those minerals. I won't take supplements. I need it from food, which is the least toxic fruits is what I'm doing. And seasonally, I eat seasonally. So right now I went and picked some organic apples while they were in season. So I've got those for a couple of months. So that's my stash, my apples. But anyway, and so this tribe in Vanuatu, they were just magnificent and beautiful. And the man that we spent the most time with, he walked, again, they're barefoot. He walked on hot coals of stone. And they poured water so we could see how hot it was. And he's walking on them barefoot. Didn't bother him a bit. I'm thinking, how can this be? But he looks fab. And I asked how old he was. He says, well, I'm not sure. We don't keep records. He goes, but maybe between 50 and 60. He said, I'm not really sure. And he was just beautiful. And then I asked him, how do you brush your teeth? He went and got this coconut. And he takes his mouth, and I'm thinking it would just make my teeth bleed. And he bites into this thing and rips it apart. I mean, this is the hard shell of it, and rips it apart. And he takes the skin of it and he's scrubbing it all into his mouth. I'm thinking, my gosh, we'd be bleeding to death. That's how it was like, wow, rough, But it just makes you question, like, this is what humans are supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to handle. We shouldn't be so fragile. We shouldn't have to. It was remarkable. But so anyway, I'll stop and throw in some more questions. But that's what we saw with people who ate almost a veganism diet compared to people who were like 50-50. They're very balanced. But they were eating some, what we would consider, those of us who are in the know, very high oxalate foods. Again, sweet potatoes, very high oxalate. Taro, very high oxalate. Cassava, and that's their prime. If they're going to eat something, that's what they love that. But we also noticed they do not, in all our research, I always said they use coconut oil because they have coconuts everywhere. Not one of them uses coconut oil. And I'm like, well, what do you use? And they said coconut milk or coconut cream. And we just get it ourselves. And I said, well, do you use any kind of coconut oil? And they said, yeah, on our hair and our skin. And that's as far as we'll go. So I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. That's definitely not what we have been led to believe with the new health crazes of MCT oil and coconut oil. As you go through that, it kind of reminds me of what, Jack Kruse has said on sunlight and melanin and just frequencies and water and stuff. And so I feel like there's definitely a component there that kind of maybe not necessarily trumps food, but is equally, if not more important. So that's really interesting that you have, experienced that the sleep difference, being, latitudinally, you're at a different area, right? Trying to process all that. I wasn't expecting you to say those things. So I love it. I love that. Let's go to kind of what y'all are really, really known for with, the book and things is the vegetable oils. And so like before we got on here, we were talking a little bit about China. And for me, the first introduction to health and cancer and food, and that connection was the China study. And so when I read that, it scared me. I thought meat caused cancer, meat did all these terrible things, and that got to be a plant-based diet, and on and on and on. But in your book, you have laid out almost a complete parallel to disease and vegetable oils in China, and it just so happens to correlate with the same time frame that was covered in the China study that never gets talked about.
No.
Can you go into that?
Well, the fact, and Chris, we talk about this a lot, the fact that in China, they have the lowest sugar consumption of like any culture. It's just so low. And then when you look at, and carbs, of course, they eat carbs, that's what they do. And so it's high, but sugar is low. Carbs are fairly high. If you look at the charts in our book and you see the trajectory of when they started incorporating seed oils, it's the exact same. They're parallel with all their diseases that come in, cancer, heart disease, all of those things go right along with the higher the seed oils, the higher the number of people are coming down with disease. And we can't blame it on sugar because their sugar level basically is staying the same. They really have never been sugar consumers. And so we thought that was one of the most profound things to note, because if everyone's always sugar, it's got to be it's the sugar. And yes, seed oils are always coupled with sugar because that's processed foods. Sugar, seed oils, all of these, refined flours and all these, they're all in processed foods. So everyone's always saying, well, we'll say it's both the sugar and the vegetable oils. But when you look at China, the sugar piece isn't there. And that to me was just so powerful. And it's the same thing with the Japanese. When you look at their culture as well, but the China with that piece with the sugar was remarkable for us. And did it impact you the same way?
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, the graph kind of said it all to me. But I really was fascinated with the time frame of when vegetable oils, I believe it was about 73 when seed oils began to really take off in China.
Yes.
And then it just progressively got more and got worse with chronic disease. But that is the same time frame that the China study happened, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yes.
So when you're looking at that, it seems so blatantly obvious to me now the correlation of seed oils is way more, there than it is with meat or anything else. And I think, the casein protein connection is where they were really trying to peg it on there. But the vegetable oil seems to just fit way, way better.
Oh, absolutely. You could put meat and anything else in there, but nothing is going to show like when you see it's the seed oils. It's what else could it be? Because and we looked at all the different avenues of what else could it be, but nothing tied in like the seed oils. And in these cultures, and eventually I will go to live with these people as well, because I have to find the truth. I have to. It's just me.
Love it.
Because I don't think we see it all until we're there. And even some people who go there, there's always an agenda or there's a bias. And I don't have anyone, I pay for everything myself. This comes out of my own pocket. No one's paying for anything that I do. It's all just based on me. I want to know the truth, and so when I go to these places, no one's paying for anything for me. It's me and God. And so I'm going with an open mind to find out, is it exactly what I read in research, or was there some bias? Was someone paying for this study and that had to kind of tweak for that, And so this is just me and God. He's holding my hand and we're going to go and we're just going to find out. So right now I'm talking with my guide who's going to be my translator when I get to Africa. And the picture is not looking good. It's not looking good right now, Logan, because he's saying that it's the same thing we saw in the islands of the Pacific, is that our food is infiltrating, and even in these remote tribes. So I said, can you find me some really older people who are not willing to bend? And I said, I want to spend a lot of time with them. And then I will also be able to spend time with people who are changing their diet, and I can compare their health and things like that. But I just need to live with people who have not changed their thinking yet, that they're still eating ancestrally. But it's going to be hard to find them now because it's infiltrating everywhere.
It's really sad that's becoming more difficult to do. So What are seed oils doing to us? What are they doing to us as we consume them?
Okay, so for anyone who's listening, and if seed oils is new, okay, so seed oils, we call, there's a component called linoleic acid. Now, the LA, we call it LA. So if I'm ever saying LA, it's linoleic acid, okay? And that's the abbreviation for linoleic acid. And it's an essential fat of the omega-6 variety. So you've got the omega-6s and the omega-3s, okay? And it's abundant, it's huge in vegetable oils. So in fact, the LA accounts for about 2% of the total fats in ancestrally raised animal sources, whereas most vegetable oils tend to range between 10% to even 70% LA. And so consumption of these high 6 LA containing vegetable oils on a regular basis can induce the accumulation of omega-6 LA within your body fat and your cellular membranes. So if we're going to take in a lot, it's going to start going into all of our cells. Our mitochondria is going to be everywhere. So of course we're thinking, well, what's the big deal? What's it matter? So the omega-6 fat, linoleic acid, LA, especially after accumulating into the body tissues, drives what Chris and I like to call the physiological environment. Okay. It's pro-oxidative, pro-inflammatory, it's toxic, and we say it's extremely nutrient deficient. There's nothing of value you're getting from these oils. Nothing. You know, they say, the gurus are the people who have in the health world say, oh, it's heart healthy. You know, no, it's not. And this sets the stage for an undesirable, of course, weight gain, metabolic chaos, and numerous chronic diseases all over the place. Okay. So in about 1865, I'm going to go back in history a little bit here. Okay. If you don't mind. So when vegetable oils, they didn't exist. They just didn't exist. Okay. And so in the United States, think about it. There wasn't any vegetable oils around 1865. And so omega-6 LA, linoleic acid, accounted for about only 1/100th of the average American diet. And by 2008, okay, so by 2008, the LA accounted for extraordinary, now it's up to 1/8 of the diet. This is in 2008. So it went from 1/100th to 1/8. I wish we had the graphs to show. And since 2008, vegetable oil consumption has continued to rise. Okay. And it represents the single greatest change. This is what we believe in our research. We believe that vegetable oil represents the single greatest change to the diet of mankind in all of history. This is the biggest change that's ever happened. So you can think about sugar and all this stuff, but it's in our research, and the graphs are profound in our book. So if we look back again to the 1900s, go right back to 1900, 99% of the added fats in the human diet were animal fats. And that's, I'm now using just mostly animal fats. So mostly lard, butter, beef, suet. I like the suet. Suet's my favorite. Tallow, which we can call tallow, but I like it in its raw state of suet. By 2005, okay, so we went from 99% was animal fat in 1900. By 2005, 86% of our added fats are vegetable oils. 86%. And with that, then we started getting a massive consumption of omega-6 in our body. And so think what that's doing. So now we've got these chronic diseases everywhere, okay? And they were unknown. When you look at all of our information, there were hardly no diseases in the late 1800s to early 1900s. There was just nothing, you know? And then all of a sudden, when you think about when Crisco oil and all these things, you look at the trajectory again, just like China, except we were earlier because it infiltrated here earlier than what they did in China. We have nothing but disease that didn't exist. My mother is blind with macular degeneration. It didn't exist. There was only a very few people that were even documented in the early 1900s. And now millions and millions and millions of people are losing their eyesight for no reason.
Do we think that this has more to do with the fact that it's changing the cell structure, whether mitochondria or the cell, by replacing the saturated fats and being made up? Those Legos, so to speak, the building blocks are not able to function properly because of the fat makeup?
I think it's possible. And again, I don't even know if we really know the true mechanism that's happening, but I just think of it as this, it's like a bulldozer just going in and it's just infiltrating and just taking over and replacing. Very similar to me. I always envision it kind of similar. I feel like what oxalates were doing to my body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just replacing things and it's taking over. And it's almost like clogging. Think of everything just being clogged up with these fats, these sticky fats and all these things. And it's just literally shutting our bodies down. But when it gets into the adipose of tissues, and we would love to, that's one of our goals, is to be able to travel to the tribes and to be able to take samples of their adipose compared to those who have left the tribes and are now eating and consuming our diet, and then compare the two. Can you imagine what we would come up with? It's just like, would be so profound. But I believe that it's just this catastrophe, this metabolic destructor that's just coming in there. And that's what Chris talks about as well, is that there's not even a way to describe, because we don't know. We haven't gone in to do true testing. We don't have the finances to do the testing. But can you imagine if we could, to be able to have the ability to afford the testing, to be able to see what truly is happening to those of us that are consuming these massive diets loaded with processed food, and especially the seed oils. And that when you take them out, within 3 to 4 years, you've purged them all. And then what happens to your body? I mean, what a profound study. What a profound study that would be, because I've never been an oil person. So I'm kind of, except for probably when I was a child, we were using Crisco. But as soon as I left my family and went to college, I had control over what I put in my mouth, and there was no more processed food. So most of my life has been without processed food. And so I'm probably one of the few Americans that can actually say that, because I just knew ahead of time. I understood my body, and I understood ancestral eating and animal eating. And so I wanted to be that. So I think even though I suffered with health, mine was based on DNA issues, and plus starting out eating processed food. But once I got rid of it, there's still health issues, but that's because I'm celiac, and that's because MTHFR, and I had to figure those out. And now that I've tweaked them, and now I know what my pristine diet is. And we have to do the same thing, Logan. We all do, just like you're doing, and how you've healed your son and all the things that you've done. It's miraculous. It's miraculous.
It's complicated though, and I think that's why the work and the experience is so important to share with those journeys though, because there are so many components, and we don't understand so much of what we don't even understand. And so one thing that I'm really curious on your take in the book, y'all talk about some of the work that Dr. Russell Ryder and Scott Zimmerman had done on melatonin and sunlight. Where can we make those connections to understand in regards to seed oil? How does that play into any of this?
So sunlight, this is the ancestral piece. And that's why I'm wondering if when we were in the Pacific Islands and I was feeling so unbelievable, the sun has immense power that we've been misled again by those that be, don't get in the sun. It's not healthy. Put sunglasses on. You've got to, become this, like the person in the bubble, just be so, and it's one of the worst things we can do. We need to be in the sun. Yes, I understand it can do damage. And I know that the more I'm in the sun, the more wrinkles I'm getting, it definitely is impacting my skin, but yeah, I'm feeling better. And I think that girls, though, and men, if we're all so vain and we're also concerned about this, the wrinkles and things that we're getting, it's part of aging. We're not supposed to look 20 years old when we're 60. There's something wrong with that, and I remember looking at my grandmother when she came back from Africa, and she's in that intense sun for 3 years, and her skin was taking on the leather look, and she was extremely Native American because she's farther down, closer to where her mother was the Native American, but she had that real Native American looking skin, if you know what I'm talking about. It was just the lines everywhere, but she looked so beautiful. She just looked real, nothing phony. And I just marveled at how beautiful she was. And she was like the Wonder Woman, but back to the sun. And so I think that with the sun, and I do believe that when you're taking in seed oils, I think that that's going to also impede how your skin is affected by the sun. A lot of people talk about, as soon as I remove the seed oils, I wasn't burning anymore. It was like all of a sudden my skin could handle it. And so I think that the seed oils, it's just so destructive in every facet. There's nothing beneficial from them. And so I think that it impacts how our every cell is going to respond. And it no longer is responding as a human would respond. And so if you're a big processed food eater, you're going to struggle. And possibly, does that promote skin cancer? Is that promoting all kinds of cancers in our body? And our research is showing that. But I'm thinking about for skin wise and the sun wise, when you've got all these oils, is that affecting how your skin naturally would be protecting you from the sun? Because it's no longer operating as God designed us to operate. And so I know I don't consume oils, and so I don't have a problem burning. I don't wear sunscreen. I'm out in all these tropic places, and I don't wear a hat. I don't wear sunglasses, and I don't burn. I get a little red, a little bit, but then as soon as I go inside, all of a sudden it's gone. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it was a glow, a little sunlight glow, but I don't burn. And it's remarkable that I don't. Yes, again, it ages our skin, but we're supposed to age, and I'm not going to stop being in the sun because I just know it's so valuable. And I do believe also for macular degeneration, for those people who are either suffering with it or you have relatives. For me and for my clients I've seen that have this, they found that by taking their sunglasses off and going out into the sun and allowing some, not a lot, but some exposure, that they're finding healing in their eyes. Yes, I know they're also removing the processed foods. Is it both of them helping to heal it? I don't know, but some of them say that they have found profound relief when they go out into the sun and they just feel. So I don't know. I'm just putting these out there. Is it a possibility? Again, we need to do studies. We need to do research on this, and it all costs money. And so again, that's what our foundations are for. If people want to donate and help us to get these studies underway, it's going to cost money, and the lab work is profound. The lab work is so expensive, but we're doing the best to find the labs who can give us the best deal. So that would be really swell. But anyway, so yeah, I do believe, I love how you think, Logan. I mean, sun, and it's the circadian rhythm. When you look at the tribes, they rise with the sun, and as soon as it's getting dark, they're sitting around their fire. It's just that firelight. Okay. And it doesn't have all of these bright lights and all the blues and things. It has more of the reds and the green tones that are just more soothing. It helps us to go into a more sound sleep. But when we're on our screens all the time and on our phones, it's just, your body's like, oh, it's daylight. It must be, I'm still supposed to be awake. And so you aren't producing the melatonin that you need. And it just makes such sense. It makes such sense that we're just not living as humans. We're living in a cage, and we need to get outside the cage, open the door, and go out. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's why I'm really drawn to the ancestral aspects of the messages. And then, man, it's just the more yeah, I mean, Dr. Jack Kruse is, been extremely controversial, right? Like, and he can be abrasive in just his approach, but the message he's saying, it dovetails and weaves into like what you have said and experienced in ways it's kind of making me double take on some of it, because when you started talking about the not burning the sun, I have seen two other groups that have been relaying that same message, and that's the ones using the high dose melatonin. So in the alternative cancer space, it's extremely common. The copper protocols, there's some out there, and there is some sort of a correlation between the sun and burning with that. Okay. And then if we have a seed oil toxicity, and there's a similar approach there, I wonder what is actually going on in the skin based off of melanin, melatonin, copper, seed oils, just that structure. I'm really curious as to if it's not the sun, it's the skin that's reacting to something that we should have anyways.
Yes, absolutely. And so again, if we always think to ourselves, and this is what I've done since I was 5, since I started studying with my father, when he would say, bring home books on the animals, and I would sit in his lap and we would, okay, what is this animal should be eating? What's their habitat? And that's how we studied. It's the same thing. Think about your body. if we were originally living outside in nature most of the time, should we be burning? Would that be natural that the human body would be out there burning? There was no sunscreen back then. There was no cancers. There was no skin cancer. Melatonin didn't exist. So there's something that we're doing wrong. What are we doing? And we have to look at every piece of the puzzle. And I really believe it's what we're ingesting, because we are what we eat, and I feel that again, and see, I'm not a believer in any kind of supplement anymore, because it gave me false hope. I was believing that, I'm taking these supplements, I'm vegan, so therefore I'm okay. And I'm not. I'm killing myself, and so now I can't feel my feet because it was so many years without copper that they don't think it can restore. Although I think it can. I really do believe I can heal my feet. But anyway, with that said, I think that the best way to live is through eating ancestrally. And again, there's not just one way. So if someone says, just being a vegan or just being a carnivore or you find what's right for you, because I know in the Maasai, they say that they eat milk, blood, and meat, and that's their diet. So that's basically carnivore. All right. And so, but then you look at the Tucasintas, basically near where we were just in the Pacific Islands, who just mostly live on sweet potatoes. They're not burning. And yes, their skin, they're darker skinned, yes, but they can still burn. But you never hear about, the skin cancers with them. They're eating from the earth. They aren't consuming the processed foods. And so we've got to stop and ask ourselves, okay? But they're also, as you're talking about, they're getting so much generation of the melatonin is producing naturally. They're getting what God designed us to get, in a fashion we're supposed to get. So if you're taking a melatonin tablet or drops, whatever you're getting, how do you know that that's accurate, the accurate amount? What if you're overdoing it? It's a hormone, just like vitamin D is a hormone. I won't take an extra hormone because God gave me exactly the hormones he wants me to have, and I want them to function exactly how he wants me to have them. And I think when you're playing with hormones, I think that's dangerous. I think it's really, really dangerous. And so do it naturally. You get up with the sun, you go outside, your eyes are seeing it, you're watching it as it's coming up, your body's saying, okay, I need to start, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to be able to jumpstart my circadian rhythm the way, in a natural way, which is when the sun, and at nighttime, go out for a stroll as the sun is setting. And then your eyes are looking into that and your body's starting to say, okay, and now I'm starting to regulate. And now I know what I need to do. Let the body do what it's designed to do. It's perfect. It doesn't make mistakes. Instead of giving it all these chemicals and things that man is creating, do it naturally. And then you'll be so optimum. You're not playing with hormones. You're not getting things all out of whack. You're doing it naturally, just like we should with food. And that's my take on that.
I love it. So how do we support and follow along with what y'all are doing, and what can we do to help?
Oh, Logan, thank you. Again, I think, guys, just listen to your body. Your body will tell you everything you need to know. If you've got an ache or a pain, there's a reason why. I mean, unless you've, slammed your hand into something, that's the reason why. But if you're just waking up and you're stiff and your joints and so forth, for me, when I turned 50, my hands, my feet, or the arthritis was getting so awful. And that's when I removed all grains, not realizing I was celiac. And within 48 hours, the pain was gone. So it's so simple. Think about what you're eating. And it could be such a simple thing. It could be, it could be grains. It could be anything. I mean, it could be a potato. If you're allergic, they've got solanine. It could be a nightshade, something in that you're allergic to. Plants, I don't eat a lot of anymore because they cause such havoc in my body. But ancestrally, I'm researching, I'm living with, and I'm seeing what worked for them. And I try something. And if in a couple of days I'm feeling, this isn't right for me, I remove it. And so just listen. Don't always listen to what you're hearing. even with me, listen to your body. It knows everything. And if you want to be able to reach out to us, we have on social media, we have Ancestral Health Foundation and Cure AMD. We have 2 websites, and they're on, of course, look for our websites. And then on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or X, and Instagram on Ancestral Health Foundation. You can find us there as well. And I'm always posting. I'm posting videos and all the things that we're doing. And our book, of course, is found on any of the online bookstores, and but we usually just say Amazon. It's so easy. You can order there. And we have a hardcover, but full color. And that to me is the one. It's just so, it's like a coffee book, coffee, you put it on your coffee table. It's just amazing. But the cheapest way to go would be to do the Kindle version. I spent so long tweaking that so that everything you click on is linkable. So if it says see graph so-and-so, it will take you right to that graph and go right back to it. So you don't have to search for things. It's beautiful. And it's all full color. We have a paperback that's black and white or color. I would never say, guys, even though it's a little cheaper, not much, the black and white, it would be useless because the graphs, you can't see the beauty of the graphs. And so again, the cheapest way, if you wanted to go the cheapest way, would be the digital version. And so that would be the route to find us. And again, it's Christmas time, and what a great gift, the gift of health. And if you want to donate and help us with our research and help to cover the expenses of having testing and things done, go to Cure AMD, and we have a donation page, and you can donate there, and we greatly appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the time and the work, and excited to follow along and continue on the journey. Thank you and a lot of appreciation.
Oh, Logan, thank you. And you're just a godsend. And thanks for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Sowing Prosperity. Be sure to follow along across the social media platforms, including YouTube, and be sure to go to sowingprosperity.com.